So I was beginning to kind of lose interest when my husband and I went on vacation to a little tiny island in the Bahamas. It's only 4 blocks wide, Harbor Island, and there is nothing to do there on a Sunday except go to the churches. There are 6 churches. They're all within walking distance of each other. So you can go to all 6 of them if you want to. And we had an experience there of the passionate praise in the Black church that just blew my mind. We're sitting in a old building with a ceiling fan and open windows with a view of the ocean and a palm tree with golden palms in it. And we're singing these loud, passionate, ecstatic praise songs, and people are jumping around. And I am thinking, this makes no sense, but I have to have this. I don't know what this is, but I have to have this. So we come back home, Arlington, Virginia. My husband looks around. He finds, not very far from us, a neighborhood that was originally segregated, a small Black church. Skipping over some details. And we go there and we are warmly greeted. We're like, everybody there here, and we're trying to hide in the back row, you know.
You are no way for you to hide in that church.
Oh God. Uh, but we loved it. And we loved it so much that we started saying to each other, this is better than the Bahamas. But I knew the theology was absolutely alien to me. As far as I was concerned, the theology was wicked and evil and might be sinful of me to be supporting them with my presence. That's why, and I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop any minute now. But we're there 6 months, and my husband joins, and then it happens. There's a Sunday when the pastor, to my eyes, outs a gay man, brings him up, has everybody come around praying for his healing. And I was just, oh my God, what have I done? I can't be here. I'm ashamed to be here. Let me out of here. But by then, we were in too deep to just walk away. I didn't want to just disappear. So I made an appointment with the pastor. I had never spoken with him one-on-one at this point, Bishop Phil Thomas, Highview Christian Fellowship. I made an appointment, and I met him in his office. And in that meeting, it was like a wormhole opened between our realities. First of all, the thing he did that completely knocked me out, when I first told him why I was there, he didn't even quite understand me. Our worlds were so different. He said, what bothered you? You said, what? But then when he understood, he started really listening to me, and he was taking notes. And my God, when he started taking notes, I thought he was going to throw me out. I didn't think he was going to listen to me and ask me questions. So that really intrigued me. And I started to get pulled into the way he was explaining things. And then he invited me to come back. And I'm thinking, oh, he is not going to save me if he thinks he's going to save my soul. And I knew absolutely nothing about the Bible, and he's quoting the Bible. So I go home, I open my email, and my metaphysical church, Celebration Center for Spiritual Living in Falls Church, Virginia, is offering a metaphysical Bible class. And I've been there 15 years. We've never offered a Bible class. So I'm like, I guess I'm supposed to take this. And that class made me realize that where we were coming from had strong Christian biblical roots. I didn't know that. I didn't pay attention to that. But that would serve me down the road in finding out how many parallels there were. They were like parallel opposites in the things he believed and the things I believed. Well, let's see. So we launched into what turned into 2 years of weekly, hourly dialogues. He was very generous with his time. I think he was enjoying it as much as I did. We had our ups and downs. In the first segment, I was asking him all the tough questions, like, how could you possibly believe in a God that does this? Smiting, fighting, wrath, hell, pagan babies. How could you believe any of that stuff? And he was really, most of the time he was really good about listening to me, responding, giving me a nuanced kind of response. And all his responses, most of his responses, not all, but most made me say, well, that isn't that bad. That isn't bad. I can see how you would see that. And to get to the why the title of the book, Wicked and Evil, isn't that bad. That was really the culminating moment when I brought some friends. My friends said, Teri, what are you doing? So I brought them to see, and one of my friends blurted out to him, Bishop Thomas, how can you believe that everyone is wicked and evil? And he was kind of taken back. He said, well, wicked and evil isn't that bad. Everybody's a sinner, and there are no degrees of sin in God's eyes. He loves us all equally. So after we get over being stunned, I said, okay, wait, are you telling me that by telling us we're wicked and evil, you're trying to support our self-esteem? And he said, well, kind of. I wouldn't have necessarily put it that way, but yes, it has that effect when you realize that. And, like, wait, Maria Bendito, yeah. So my world got turned inside out. After we had finished with those, well, what I called loopholes, what he told me I called 6 loopholes in fundamentalism, because to me, anybody who took the Bible literally was a fundamentalist. I've gotten a more nuanced picture of that since Bishop Thomas says, oh, I'm not a fundamentalist. My mother was a fundamentalist. I don't want to be like that. So then I started to move on to the benefits that I saw in my new thought perspective. And what he did there often was to say, whenever there was something good, he would say, oh, well, that's in the Bible. They stole that from the Bible. Most notably, I was talking about I would never want to be in a fear-based religion. And he would say, well, the Bible says there is no fear in love. What? That's in there? Where's that? Where?
True love casts out fear.
And also, meanwhile, there were dozens of coincidences. The coincidences were just swirling all over the place to make me feel like I was in sacred ground on some kind of a journey. And then, meanwhile, to that, I was living behind the scenes at the church. We were going pretty much every Sunday, sometimes going back to Celebration Center. I volunteered at church preschool. We went to the men's and women's ministry meetings, sometimes being the only white person on the bus going to the ministry meeting. I thought, well, this is interesting. So I got to see how people lived, and I got to see how powerful faith was in the lives of the congregants.
Yeah.
And also there was a lot of beautiful humility.
Yeah.
That to use the word I think Christians use, convicted me, that made me feel like as one friend of mine put it, grosero, like it was just beautiful to me. And also they were doing things. They weren't just talking about things. They were trying to have a homeless shelter and a food pantry and a financial workshop and all those things. Bishop Thomas has a big vision for that, way beyond the resources of the church. So the volunteers got burned out and no problem, all that.
And I mean, Bahamas, Caribbean, sort of similar vibes. I'd go to some of these Haitian churches, and there are plenty of issues, but boy, I'll tell you, when they were praising God, they didn't leave anything on the table. You knew their whole lives were in what they were doing. They were praying and praising like their life depended on it, because it did.
So I also got to deal. It's like I was dealing with all 4 P's, as it were, Vervaekes, because when I went to the women's ministry and my husband went to the men's ministry, we got to not just hear in theory what they thought about gender roles, but see how it played out.
Yep.
And that kept surprising me.
Yep.
I went to a women's ministry meeting that was supposed to be about avoiding pants land, where a woman told us, if your husband doesn't pay the monthly bills the way he's supposed to or whatever, do not put on the pants and do it for him. Uh, and then they'd talk about how the man is the head of the house. You should let him lead in the decisions. But if I asked them, okay, well, give me an example, like what decisions? They couldn't actually think of anything. And when I would say, well, do you mean stuff like whether you should make a major purchase? And they'd say, oh, no, both of us would have to consult on that. Well, if you were going to move to a new town because he got the better job, no, both of us would have to consult on that. And I couldn't find anything they said he should actually make the decision on. So that there's a whole fascinating thing going on there. So I asked Bishop Thomas about this. I was trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And he said, well, we all know that at the age of marriage, early 20s, women tend to be more mature than men. And so it's important that they step back and give the men a chance to catch up and learn on their own. I'm thinking, well, that isn't that bad. And then at one point he said, but I tell you, Teri, there's sometimes a woman comes in here and tells me what her husband's up to, and I just want to tell her to wait till that sucker's in bed and get the frying pan. and and so the humor, the lightness, that was the other thing. The lightness around these issues made a huge difference for me. So at one point, they all say, this is my husband, the Lord and master of my life. So I did that once or twice when Andy and I were with groups of our friends in the other world. Everybody was kind of shocked. But I tell you, my husband beamed. He knew it was a guilty pleasure. He knew he wasn't supposed to be beaming, but he liked that.